Family. Welcome to the Practical Purpose Podcast. It's your boy, Dr. Brian Williams. I'm here. It's July 5th. And we're going to talk about failure today. We're going to talk about failure. Listen, you may have failed in some area of your life. You may consistently fail in some areas of your life. But the way that you deal with failure will ultimately determine how successful you become. And so we want to talk today about dealing with failure. We're going to define what failure is not, and how do we move forward in our lives so that we can be successful, so that we can reach our ultimate goal, our ultimate vision, whatever it is that God has for our life. How do we move forward even after failure? Listen, maybe it's you. Maybe you're in a season that you failed in something. Maybe it's somebody you know. You got about 60 seconds. I want you to invite them into the dungeon. Let's talk about how you deal with failure. Stay tuned.
How excellent are you? How excellent are you on your level? Like you spend so much time talking about other people at your job. How excellent are you on your level? Are people benefiting from your excellence?
Say 1 2. Say 1 2. Yeah. 1 2. Say 1 2. Yeah. Say 1 2. Say 1 2. We living life with a practical purpose, making every day worth it. Live from the dungeon, we go deeper than the surface, leading with wisdom from the streets to the churches. Searching, what seeking you find? We speaking right to your mind. The sun ain't fighting to shine, no diamonds either. Light hit the Jews and turn fools to believers. Steady making moves and teaching truth to the leaders. Use all these tools just so you can supersede us as real. Say 1 2. Yeah. Say 1 2. Say 1 2. Yeah. Say 1 2. Say 1 2. Yeah. Say 1 2. Say 1 2. Yeah. Yeah.
Man, my brother blessed me with that intro. That thing get me bopping every time. Listen, let's talk about how do we deal with failure. Listen, because it's inevitable. I don't care what you're doing in life, where it is you're trying to go, what profession you're in, what occupation you hold, you're going to have to deal with failure. And failure is inevitable only if you have some level of expectation. If there's some goals and some visions that you have out there for yourself or for your family or for your organization or for your company, you're going to fail sometimes. And it's important for us to define failure. It's important for us to know what failure is and what it isn't, because I don't care who you are, you cannot escape failure. You are going to fail in some area of your life. Maybe you're a parent. Maybe you're a single mom. Maybe you're a single dad. Maybe you feel like you failed your child. Listen, I've raised children. I'm raising children. And there are so many areas that I feel like I have failed as a parent, right? And so the way that you bounce back from that failure, the way that you handle and you assess that failure will determine how you move forward in that particular area of your life. Listen, Webster defines failure as lacking success or falling short, being deficient in a particular task or area. And I would add that it's lacking success in the moment, right? Because failure, we'll talk about, is not the opposite of success. Right? Failure is a part of the process. Listen, I was talking to my brother about this a few days ago, and he said something so powerful. He said that the opposite of failure is not success. The opposite of success is not failure. The opposite of success is apathy. Let me say that again. The opposite of success is apathy. What is apathy? Apathy is doing absolutely nothing. And we've reached a place in our culture, in our society, where we will do absolutely nothing and expect people to feel sorry for us, right? The opposite of success is not failure, it's doing nothing. You will never be successful if you do nothing, right? You're never on the path to success if you do absolutely nothing. So the opposite of success is not failure. Failure is a part of the process. Listen, you're going to fail anytime you're pushing and pursuing something greater than you. You're going to fail whenever you're pursuing something greater than you. Listen to this quote. You will never fail if you don't take risks. And if you don't take risks, you will never succeed. Listen, you will never fail if you don't take risks. But if you don't take risks, you will never succeed. So if you're sitting being lazy and not doing anything, you don't have a chance to be successful. Life is about taking risks. Maybe you need to start that business. Maybe you need to start that company. Maybe you need to start mentoring folk. Maybe you need to go out and start hitting the gym. Maybe you need to take risks to get out of your comfort zone so that you can ultimately be successful. Listen, failure is the opportunity to begin again, this time even better. See, we're going to talk about that. Your perspective when you fail is ultimately going to determine how you become successful, when you become successful, right? And how successful you become. Listen, failure is the opportunity to begin again. We shun that a lot. Like we get upset with beginning again. But beginning again is actually a picture of God's grace and God's mercy. He's given us another chance to try it again. Right? No matter what that is, let's not be too deep and just talk about sin. But no matter what that is, you slacked off at the gym. Right? Now you've got an opportunity to begin the process again. But this time you know a little more than you knew the first time. Right? Failure is an opportunity to do it again, but be even better at it. Right? You know a little more. That's that experiential knowledge. You know more than you knew the first time. Right. And sometimes we struggle with this because we're perfectionists. There's a terminology called neurotic perfectionism. And what that means is it means that there's always a little voice in our head that's telling us you're not good enough. Even when you succeed, you're not good enough. It's not as good as the next person. Right. And we live in a society where we compare and we diminish people because they may not be exactly what the greatest look like. Listen, we diminish the greatness of a LeBron James because we have to compare him to Michael Jordan. Right. It's that neurotic perfectionism. You have to always put yourself up against the best, instead of understanding that you are uniquely and wonderfully made to do it the way God intended you to do it. Right. And so whenever we don't fail, sometimes we don't appreciate the process when we get to where we're going. And so, my brother, failure is one of the stops on the journey toward success. Absolutely. And sometimes it's one of the 10 stops because you're going to fail when you're trying to be great at anything. You're going to fail over and over, and you're going to fail in different ways. Right? Listen, never confuse a single failure with a final defeat. PK10, come on, psychology. Listen, I got that terminology from my friend, Dr. Danielle Odom. I know she's not on, but she's going to watch. And we were talking about failure. And she taught me about what neurotic perfectionism was. Right. And she's a teacher and she teaches my son. And so these lessons she's embedding into 10, 11, 12-year-old kids about how to fail the proper way. Listen, never confuse a single failure with a final defeat. Listen, it's a process, right? And as long as you keep getting up after you fail, you're not a failure. As long as you keep getting up after you fail. Listen, I was playing golf yesterday with my cousins, and one of my cousins has just really picked up the game of golf, but he's so used to of being successful at everything. Golf is not that kind of sport that you just get it as soon as you start. And so he hit the first hole, man. He hit some beautiful shots and got on the second and third hole, and he started to kind of fall off. And it's because he couldn't adjust his mind to start over and begin again every time he hit the ball. right? And sometimes in life, you it's not one single failure that causes you to be in defeat. You have to continuously start over, begin again, reprogram your mind to do it all over again. And that's tiresome. Watch this, but it's beneficial to the person that you're becoming. Right? You begin again a little better each time. Listen, sometimes failure isn't a mistake. Remember, we said that we're going to define what failure is and what it's not. Sometimes it's not a mistake. It's the best you can do under the circumstances. Let me say that again, because somebody needs to hear that. Sometimes failure isn't a mistake. It is the best you can do under the circumstances. And so often we beat ourselves down because we failed, and we attribute it to all the mistakes that we could have made. Right? But a lot of times you're doing the best that you can possibly do under the circumstances that you're given. And because of that, those circumstances, you come up short. And that's why in the thumbnail, you see the cards. I play spades. You can't do any better than the cards that you're dealt. And sometimes you're going to lose under the circumstances, although you played the cards the best way you could. Listen, in the NBA Finals just now, there was Oklahoma City and Indiana. And in Game 7, Indiana's best player got hurt in the first quarter. And other than the Indiana Pacers, there was probably nobody else that believed they could win with their best player down. And they played as hard as they could. They gave all they could, but they were down their best player. Listen, they didn't fail because of the mistakes. They failed because of the circumstances. And sometimes single moms, single dads, sometimes you're doing the best you can possibly do under the circumstances, and you come up short. You cannot beat yourself down for failing when you come up short under the circumstances that you didn't give yourself, right? And you have to always have the proper perspective in order to understand that failure is not final, right? As long as I keep getting up. Listen, let's talk about some principles on the practical side of dealing with failure. We're going to talk about 8 principles, and then we're going to jump into some spiritual thoughts about how to deal with failure. Listen to this. The first thing when you're dealing with failure is you have to accept failure as a part of the process. Failure is only the end if you quit. Listen, it's only the end if you quit. I remember seeing a track star, I forgot his name, but he tore his hamstring in the middle of the race, right? And he got up off the ground and he started hobbling. And his dad came out the stand, and the dad was holding him, and they hobbled to the finish line. And there were people coming and telling him, just stop before you hurt yourself even more. And he was saying, I have to finish this. I have to finish this. He kept being persistent and pursuing. And although he ultimately lost the race, nobody remembers who won that race. We remember the story of the guy who tore his hamstring and got up and finished anyway. And sometimes when you fail, it's more of a story to fail and get up than it is to succeed. Proverbs 24:16 says this: a righteous man falls 7 times, but he gets up every time. And sometimes the story that's going to bless you and bless somebody else in your life is the story that, yes, I failed, but I got back up. And I got back up better. And then I failed again, but I got back up better. Maybe somebody needs to see you, father, mother, sister, brother. Maybe somebody needs to see you get back up from the failure and stop being apathetic and doing nothing and expecting sympathy. Get up from your failure, because the getting up is the story, is the testimony that somebody else needs, that they can do the same thing. Listen, so you have to accept failure as a part of the process. Here's the second thing you have to do. You have to extract the lesson in the failure. There's a lesson in every failure. There's a lesson that we can learn about how to be better the next time, right? What can this teach me? And oftentimes we don't want to learn that lesson. We don't want to know what that lesson is. But if we're going to get better in what we're doing as a parent, as a spouse, as a leader on your job, as a CEO, you have to understand that there's a lesson in everything. Right. That's one thing that I talked about when my aunt passed a few years ago at her funeral, is that she found a lesson in everything. She taught us something about everything. She found a lesson. And if you can find the lessons in life in every situation, you're going to consequently get better because you're consistently learning. Right. You're a lifelong learner. Listen, every failure is a chance to learn something valuable. Every failure is a chance. Maybe you raised your voice at your children and you shouldn't have. Maybe you got upset with your husband or your wife over something petty and you shouldn't have. And if you take the lesson from that, then you know how to adjust the next time. Now, adjusting the next time is another lesson, but you'll know when it happens again how you need to deal with it. Nothing is in vain if you have the right perspective. Nothing is in vain, right? You can use a lesson from anything. Listen, PK Tan says, lost the race, but won a bigger internal battle, right? And that's what life is about. Listen, life is about getting better, right? And we don't get better. We get better intrinsically first, like it's inside out. Right? We start to get better in those secret places, in those secret moments. Right? I read a quote. I can't remember. It was a few weeks ago, and the man was saying that you're only as strong as you are in secret. Right. And what he was saying is that the way that we learn how to be what we're supposed to be happens in those quiet moments. Right. In those moments of prayer and meditation and worship or whatever you do, though you build yourself up and now you become better for those who follow you or those who are around you or those who are in your sphere of influence. But it starts internally. And if you're not spending any quiet time at all in your life doing anything, you're never going to get better. I'm going to say that again. Because people don't like that. But you're never going to get better if you never take time to be still. And here's why people don't want to be still, PK and Tan. They don't want to be still because when you become still, you start hearing your thoughts. You start hearing the things that you need to do better, the things that you need to be better at for your husband, for your wife, for your children. And you don't want to hear those things, so you keep noise. You get in the car, you cut on the radio. Right. I'm going somewhere with my family and I don't think they really like it. But a lot of times I don't have anything on in the car. And I don't have anything on because normally when I'm riding by myself, I just don't listen to the radio. That's time where I'm listening to my thoughts. I'm listening to God speak to me. Right. And that's because I want to become better. Now, I'm not perfect in that. And sometimes I do have the radio on. But we've been conditioned to always have something on distracting us so that we can't grow internally. And that's why some of us church folk are at the altar every Sunday. Because we're only getting external and we're not spending time like Psalms 46:10 says, be still and know. Right? You can't know until you're still. Right? My brother, there he is. That's the bishop right there. Raymond. You have to be still. You have to be still. What's up, Andre? That's my barber. Man, you need to come back to work, man. Stop going on vacations. That's why I got this hat on. You got to be still. And when we are still, that's when we are able to really grow. Let me kind of harp on that a little bit and I got to move on. But you're never going to get better outside of your quiet time. You're never going to get better until you understand that there's some internal things that need to change. Till you start questioning your own actions, till you start questioning your own motives, until you start questioning why you think the way you think, why you do the things you do. You never get questioned like that until you're in your own quiet time. And we shun that time. We run away from that time because that time challenges us. Listen, I'm not saying you need to do it first thing in the morning. I'm not saying you need to do it at the end of the day. I'm not saying when you need to do it. But what I'm saying is you need to spend some time questioning yourself, thinking to yourself, meditating yourself about how you can become better in whatever area of life you're responsible for. Listen, you'll never be a better father until you start thinking about how to be one. You'll never be a better husband, a better wife till you start thinking about how to be one. And then your actions start lining up with whatever you heard in your quiet time. And then people start seeing the external that's going on internally. Right? And that's how our life changes. My boy, DJ. That's how our life changes. It changes from the inside out. The altar professionals are triggered. Yeah, I know. And they have the same clientele every Sunday. But it's because there's work that has to be done in us that is internal. And if we don't do the work, then we're going to have to go to something external every time because we're not doing the work, right? And we have to do the work. You have to extract the lesson from the failure. Number 3, you have to acknowledge emotions, but don't personalize your failure. Listen, yes, I failed. Yes, you failed, but you're not a failure, right? Failure is an event. It's not an identity. Let me say that again. Failure is an event. It's not your identity. And the problem is that we identify ourselves as so many things other than what God identifies us as. Right? We identify ourselves as so many other things than what God identifies us as. Right? And we do that in so many areas of our life. I'm a black Christian. Right? I'm a failure because I failed 3 times. No, God, how does God identify you? Right? And the way he identifies you is how you have to begin to identify yourself. Watch this. Even when you don't feel like it. Right. Even when you don't feel like it, you have to identify yourself the way the maker, the creator, the manufacturer, like my brother Wilmot says, the way the manufacturer identifies you. That's how you have to identify yourself. And if you personalize failure and you identify yourself as what you have done, then you're always going to be something else. Because every time you make a mistake, you're going to identify yourself as that. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right. Now, I don't believe in all the new age stuff and manifesting and all. I don't believe in that. But what I do believe is what you say about yourself and what you say to yourself psychologically has a determining factor in what you ultimately do. And what you ultimately do determines what you ultimately become. Right. And so the more I call myself a failure, the more I begin to act like a failure. And then I become that. But when I begin to align my thoughts and my words with who God said that I am, then I begin to act like that, even when I don't feel like that. And then I become that. And so what you say in your time, in your personal time, in your quiet time. See, the word meditation actually means repetition. It means to say it over and over. And there's power in saying it over and over, whatever that it is. Maybe that's a scripture. Maybe that's an affirmation, whatever that is. There's power in saying it over and over, because the more you say it over and over, the more you believe it and the more you act on it. That's why worship music is so triggering, because if you notice, worship songs say the same thing over and over and over. And the more you say it, the more you focus on it. The more you focus on it, you begin to internalize what it means. And then you forget your problems because you've magnified the manufacturer. right? Right? Yeah. Dre says speaking it into existence. And this is what that means to me. See, I don't believe you could just say something and it happens. I believe you speak it, you say it, and then your actions line up with what you said. And once your actions line up with what you said, you become what you spoke. Right? Our actions is what determines what we ultimately become, and we have to deal with that. What's up, cuz? We have to deal with that. And so you acknowledge the emotions, but you don't personalize the failure. You don't identify yourself as a failure, even though you made some mistakes or even though you came up short. Because remember, sometimes failure isn't a mistake. It's the best you could have done under the circumstances. And you just came up short, right? So we said accept the failure as part of the process, extract the lesson, acknowledge emotions, but don't personalize it. Here's number 4, make the adjustment. Make the adjustment. You know, failure is feedback. Failure is feedback. Appreciate you. When you fail, that's feedback on how I can become better the next time. Listen to this. One difference between good coaches and great coaches is the ability to make adjustments. You make adjustments. I play a volleyball from time to time, and one of the guys who plays with us, name is Greasy. He'll say, "All right, y'all, make the adjustment. Make the adjustment." Right? Because one thing I like about him is he's always trying to win. He don't care who we playing against. He don't care. He don't care about nothing but winning. And I love that. And he'll always say, make the adjustments. Listen, how many adjustments are you making on a daily basis in your life? So you made the mistake yesterday. You fell short in a particular area yesterday. You know you didn't hit the gym yesterday. You know you didn't read your Bible at all yesterday. You know you didn't read anything yesterday. All right, what adjustment are you going to make to your schedule so that you are successful the next day? And great people are different from good people because great people make the adjustment. They don't make the excuse. Let me say that again. Great people make the adjustment. They don't make the excuse. Right. So when your wife comes to you and say, I really don't like when you do X, Y, Z, are you going to make an excuse about this is how I saw my dad do it, or this is how I'm used to doing it? This is how I've been doing it for 20 years. Or are you going to make the adjustment? And the difference sometimes between success and failure is the adjustment. It's the adjustment. Make the adjustment. That's why Bill Belichick was one of the greatest coaches, if not the greatest NFL coach of all time, because he knew how to make adjustments. He didn't always have the best players. He didn't always have the best talent, but he made the adjustment. And in every area of your life, you'll become a consistent success even after failure if you make the adjustments. That's my barber. Dre says, scared to fail is putting too much power in fear. False evidence appearing to be real. Absolutely. We have a fear of failure, right? We have a fear of failure because we don't properly define failure. We don't properly define failure. And we now know that failure is not just coming up short. It's momentary. It's not who I am. It's something that I've done or didn't do, right? And I can always bounce back from that. Mr. Reese, my guy, man, this my social worker here, great guy, terrible football fan. He's a Cowboy fan. I know a few of them on here, but that's all right. Yeah, so making the adjustments is critical. That's why the Cowboys can't win. They don't make the adjustments. Like when you go in it's halftime for a reason. I was watching podcast with Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. I don't know the name of the podcast, but Kevin Garnett is like top 2 of my favorite players of all time. And he said when he got to Minnesota at the end of his career, because he came back, he said the young guys at halftime would be on their phones and texting and on Facebook and all of that at halftime. And he said he got upset and he confronted them because we should be talking about the game. He said we should be making adjustments. And that's what made him such a great athlete. adjustments. You've got to make adjustments. Listen, which means you've got to analyze what you did and didn't do. You've got to be real with yourself. That's where that quiet times comes in. You have to be real with yourself and understand that if I don't see it for what it is, then I can't make the adjustment. You can't be apathetic, right? You can't be apathetic. Listen, Ms. Niles is my counselor. She said adjustments require change and we must be willing to change. Yeah, we have to adjust, or we have to analyze what we did or didn't do in that failure. And once we do that, then we're able to make the adjustments through changing. But a lot of times we don't want to change. Right. And we don't want to change because we're so used to doing something a certain way, whether or not it's good or bad. We make the excuse, I've always been this way. Listen, in one PD that I do for leadership is the worst phrase in leadership, I believe, is we've always done it this way. Because just because it's always been done a certain way does not mean that's the best way for now. And in life, we understand that we live seasonally. Right. And something that worked in one season may not work in another season, which requires that quiet time for us to sit down and hear those thoughts and understand through meditation and prayer and reading and whatever you do, that this is something that I need to change to become better. Right. The quiet time is dangerous, but necessary. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the lack of quiet time is a distraction that the enemy uses to keep us busy. I'm going to say that again. The lack of quiet time is a distraction that the enemy uses to keep us busy. We stay so busy in our culture that we don't have time for ourselves. We don't have time with God. We don't have time to meditate because we're so busy. And anything that you want to be successful at, you have to find quiet time to meditate and to adjust so that you can be successful at it. And we do that. We do it with the things we want to do it with. You got quiet time to play the PlayStation. You make time to do that. You make time to do the things you want to do. But we don't always make time to do the things we need to do so that we are more effective at the things that we want to do. Let me say that again. That was good. we don't take the time to have the quiet time so that we can do the things that we want to do more effectively. You can't be effective externally if you don't take time internally to grow and develop. That's good. That's good. Brian Sumter says, Falcons in the second half of that Super Bowl, they lost. We've always done it this way. The first half, right? They were down with 20. They were up 28-3 against the Patriots, right? And they end up losing because they tried to go out in the second half and do what they did in the first half. And you have to take time to make adjustments. Dre says, scared to change because it comes with leaving people behind that doesn't belong on your journey anyway. Man, listen, that's so good, Dre, because we want to take people with us that don't have any business going with us in the season that we're going into, right? Some people are good. They're supposed to be with you for a lifetime, but then there's some people that are seasonal, and you've got to have the relational intelligence to know who's supposed to be with me now and who's not supposed to be with me. And Dre, I always get an example of Jesus. When he goes up to the mountain of transfiguration, he don't take all 12 of them with him. He take Peter, James, and John, right? When he went into the garden, he took Peter, James, and John. He didn't take everybody with him. And there are some places that you're going in your life that you can't take everybody with you. And that's not necessarily because they're bad people. They're just not in this season. They're not for you. And they're going to harm you more than help you. Listen, so we said accept failure. It's good in the comments. Accept failure as part of the process. Extract the lesson. Acknowledge emotions, but don't personalize failure. Make adjustments. Here's the fifth thing. You need to have the right perspective. Nothing is in vain if you have the right perspective. One setback doesn't define your entire life, right? You have to have the right perspective. You have to have the right perspective. Listen, and perspective is critical. The way you see it, we talked about it earlier. If you don't see yourself the way the manufacturer sees you, you're not going to have the right perspective. You have to keep the right perspective if you're going to bounce back from failure. Number 6, stay aligned. I got to put this in high gear with your purpose. Stay aligned with your purpose. Listen, reconnect to your why. Why are you parenting? Right? Why are you trying to be a good parent? Why are you trying to be a good spouse? Why are you trying to be a good educator? Why are you trying? What is your why? Right? And once you connect or you reconnect with your why, you get a little bit more fuel to bounce back better. Right? I got to be a better parent for my son and my daughters. I got to be a better husband for my wife. Like I got to do this and that and that and that so that I can be better for them. And once you analyze that why, once you reconnect with that why, now you've got fuel. You've got fuel to go and do what it is that you're called to do. And that's why sometimes as parents, I'm not going to say mothers or fathers because I think it's both, but sometimes as parents, we could go days without getting enough sleep. Without because we're transporting our kids to this game and to that practice and to this rehearsal and to this and that, and we're exhausted and we're tired, but we keep doing it because in our minds we know why we're doing it. We recognize our why. And when you recognize that why, when you understand that why, then you become better every single day. Does that mean you're going to have all the energy you need? No, it doesn't. You're going to be tired, but you get energy from reconnecting with your why. Listen, so stay aligned with your purpose. Number 7, seek the right support. Seek the right support. Talk with trusted individuals. Listen, when I'm struggling in a particular area of my life, there's always somebody I can go talk to about it. Right? Whether or not it's my wife, whether or not it's a counselor, whether or not it's my some of my closest friends, right? I can seek the right support. And that helps me get through it. Listen, sometimes, watch this, sometimes you're not supposed to get up on your own. Reach out and reach up for help. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes you're not supposed to get up on your own. You need help getting up. Listen, if you know the story of Peter getting out of the boat, right? And I'm not going to stay on this long because there's so many lessons in that story, right? But Peter gets out of the boat. He sees Jesus walking on the water. He says, if it's you, tell me to come on out there. So Peter gets out on the boat. That's one lesson that we always hear, that Peter got out of the boat. Sometimes you got to get out of the boat. Right? Good lesson. Then Peter begins walking on the water, right? Now, we don't know how far he walked, but it was on water, so it really don't matter, right? So Peter was walking on the water. And the text says, as soon as he saw the effects of the wind and the waves, he began to sink. And we've heard that lesson. But here's the lesson about bouncing back from failure. The scripture says something interesting. It says that Peter began to sink and he called out for help. And it says immediately Jesus reached out to him and called him. That stuck with me, right? Because the text never says that Jesus was walking on the water while Peter was walking on the water. So it means that Peter had walked on the water for some amount of time. We don't know how long or how far, but he walked on the water, but he was close enough to Jesus where Jesus didn't have to come to him to rescue him. All he had to do was reach down. And sometimes we are so close to where it is we want to be, where it is our destiny is, and that's when we experience the failure. You get the most attack when you're closest to what it is you're trying to do. And so he falls, but he has enough wherewithal to call out for the right support at the right time. And the support is so close to him, which means he's already accomplished so much that he got close to his destiny and his support just had to reach down and grab him. Now, another interesting part of the story that I was reading when I was studying is that how did they get back to the boat? The Bible never tells us. But many theologians believe that Peter walked with Jesus on the water back to the boat, which shows us that failure is not final. Right? And when you get the closest to where it is you want to go, that's when you have the most susceptibility sometimes to fail. And Jesus didn't have to come to Peter. He just reached down because he was already there. Whew. Brian Sutton says immediately he called. All he had to do was call out for the right help. And that's the problem with many of us. And I say this just about on every podcast. We are ashamed to get the right help. Get the right help. Sometimes I come in the house and my wife is on the phone with her best friend. Listen, it don't bother me because I know she needs in some areas to talk to somebody that don't look like me. Getting the right support. You got to know who to call. Failure, that's right, Barry, is not final. And this is the same Peter that walked on the water. This same Peter that denied Jesus 3 times. And every time Jesus told him, hey, feed my sheep. Used them. But that failure, he was so close that all Jesus had to do was reach out to him. We don't know how far he walked, but it was on water. So it could have been 2 steps and it was amazing. Right? But he knew, and he wasn't ashamed because he had 11 other of his best friends in the boat. He didn't call for them. He didn't call for them to help. He called for the right help. And if you seek the right support after you fail, you have a better opportunity, a chance of beginning again the next time. Seek the right support. Listen, number 8, and we got to hurry up and speed this up. You got to be resilient. Listen, you got to be resilient. You can recover. I don't care what it is. I don't care what mistake you've made. I don't care how you may have fallen short. Even if it wasn't your fault you fell short, you can recover. You can recover from it. Listen, sometimes it takes time to get back up. Sometimes it takes time to get back up. You don't recover from it the next day. It takes time. Think about boxing. You know, in boxing, somebody get knocked down and they start counting to 10, right? And sometimes on the first count, you can get up. Sometimes you done took that left jab to the jaw and you need all 9 of them seconds to lay there and get your mind right and then get back up, right? But no matter how long, there's no penalty. No matter how long it takes, just get back up. Remember Proverbs 24:16, a righteous man falls 7 times, but he rises again. You can be resilient. You can recover. You can get back up, right? All right. So those principles of dealing with failure, you accept failure as part of the process. You extract the lesson. You acknowledge your emotions, but you don't personalize them. You don't personalize failure. You're not a failure. You failed, right? You make the adjustments because it's feedback. That failure is feedback. You keep the right perspective. You stay aligned with your purpose. Seek the right support, and you be resilient. My brother Walt, there's an Army quote that says, "Other than death, all failure is psychological." Woo, that's all right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to write that down. Other than death, all failure is psychological. I think that's what Kanye said. Kanye said, what doesn't kill me does what? Make me stronger. Walt, good to see you, man. Failure is not fine. So let's look at this thing very quickly on the spiritual side, right? So on the spiritual side, I'm not here to give you a bunch of tenets of what to do when you fail on the spiritual side, but I want to just give you some encouragement about failing and about what God says he can do through our failure. Ms. Carter, or if it's not death, it's only an opportunity. Absolutely. Right. What can we do? What is some encouragement about faith? Now, I want to use a text. I want to look at a text of scripture that is so famous. Everybody knows it. But I'm going to say this on the onset, and some of y'all may log off. But this text doesn't apply to everybody. Everybody can't throw this text around and use it. All right. And so in Romans 8:28, we know the text, right? But it's not applicable to everybody. There's some stipulations put on the text that tells us who it's for. And Paul is talking here about how some encouragement about the mistakes we make in life, about failure, about how to deal with them. And he says this in Romans 8:28. He says, and we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God and are called according to his purpose. Okay. So remember I said that it doesn't apply to everybody. Paul makes that clear. He says, we know that all things are going to work together for the good of these particular people, of those who love God and are called according to the purpose. So if you don't fit that criteria, then the A clause of that text ain't for you. So you can't just do anything, live anyway, and expect that text to apply to you. And that's what we have to start teaching a little more, because it sounds good for me to say that. But if I'm not one of those people that are called or love God, then the working of everything for my good is not applicable to me. It's just like people say, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. That ain't for everybody. That ain't for everybody. That is for a select group of people, right? And so Paul says that, and we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God and who are called according to his purpose. Now, because Paul begins with and, then we have to look back at what he's talking about before it. Right. And is a conjunction, meaning it's linking two thoughts. So what is Paul saying? In the previous text, in the previous verses, Paul is talking about the Spirit making intercession for us. And it says that through groanings that we cannot utter. That's not tongues, my people. It's groanings that cannot be uttered. And so because we have a paraclete, we have a comforter who is walking next to us, who is able to see around the corner when we can only see to the corner. He's able to make sure that all things will work for our good. So Paul says, because we have that helper, because we have that comforter that's praying for us when we can't pray, when we don't know what to pray, now we know, and we know all things work together for our good. So the first thing that's encouraging about failure is that you can have confidence in failure, because Paul begins by saying, and we know. You can have confidence in failure for one reason. First reason is because God doesn't waste anything. God doesn't waste anything. Listen, he can use any and everything to work for our benefit. He doesn't waste any experience. He doesn't waste any thought. He doesn't waste anything. So even the stuff that you thought were going to derail you and derail your life, God can use it because he doesn't waste anything. You remember when he fed the 5,000, not including women and children? He had a whole bunch to use now. He doesn't waste anything. And so because he doesn't waste anything, we can have confidence in failure, because he will use that failure for our benefit. Listen, your response to failure reveals your true character. Your response to failure spiritually reveals your true character. Are you willing to admit that you made a mistake or that you came up short in whatever area, right? Now, sometimes you have to admit that to others, but a lot of times that's just admitting it to yourself in your quiet time to God. Hey, I made a mistake. I came up short in this area of my life, whatever that may be. That reveals your true character. Are you humble enough? Are you humble enough? See, you want to humble yourself. You don't want God to humble you. Are you humble enough to admit that I made a mistake? And I can make the mistake. I can fall short in confidence, knowing that God is not going to waste this mistake. He's going to use it for my benefit. So the first thing is you can have confidence in failure. Listen to the second thing. God can make even the failure work out in your benefit. That is so amazing. That not only are the good lessons, not only are the good things that happen in my life working for my benefit, but if I'm one of the people that this text applies to, then even the bad stuff works in my benefit. That's a win-win situation, right? God is sovereign even in our failures. And that sovereign doesn't mean like a chess piece, like he's controlling, or what you call it, a ventriloquist. He's controlling everything. No, it just means he's over everything. He sees everything. And because he sees and knows everything, the end from the beginning from the end, because he knows all of that, he knows how to position me, right, in the right place to be able to bounce back from failure. He can use that failure for my benefit. Listen, God specializes in redemption. That's what he does. Like the whole story of the Bible is a redemptive story. Like he looks to redeem us, right? You remember the first time redemption was needed when Adam ate the fruit in the garden, and then God it takes him thousands of years because of all of the prophecies, and he sends Christ to redeem us. God specializes in redeeming us. And because he's a God of redemption, we can have confidence that when we fail, he can restore us, right? So you can have confidence in failure. Number one. Number two, God can make even the failure work out for your good. But watch number three. Love and purpose lead to redemption. See, he only redeems us because he loves us and he has a purpose for our life. Yeah, Paul says it in the text. Paul says, and we know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, that's love, and are called according to his purpose. So even your failure, your mistake, your shortcoming ultimately should glorify God because he can redeem it. And it's a beautiful picture. That's why I love seeing these stories of people who were on all out, and they were strung out on this, strung out on that, and God found a way to redeem them. It doesn't bring glory to them. It brings glory to God, right? His promise to work it out for our good is predicated on his love for us and his purpose in our life. His promise to work it out for our good is predicated on his love for us and his purpose in our life. And what that tells me is this. It tells me this, Barry, that your life has a deeper meaning. You're here for more than just you. You're even in your failures, there is a lesson that can be learned, not just by you. See, even though you feel like an inadequate single mom, your child is learning some lessons from the redemptive work that God is doing through your failure. Let's get up out of here. Your child is learning lessons about God because of the redemptive work that's being done. And you only need to be redeemed when you failed. Right? And so your life has a deeper meaning. You're not here just for you. Everything that you do can be a lesson for someone else. And we need to think about it. See, that's how you make the world better. Your sphere of influence, whatever that is, whoever that is, how big that is or how small that is, if you affect that sphere of influence the way that you're called and purposed to do, then what ultimately happens is everybody around you gets better. And that's why you got to have the right circle. So here's the encouragement in Romans 28 is that number one, you can have confidence in failure. That's oxymoronic, but it's true. You can have confidence that when you fail, if I approach failure the right way, then there's a redemptive lesson in my failure that's going to benefit me and it's going to benefit someone else. Number two is God can make even the failure work out for your good. I don't know, that blesses me because I'm one of them people that fail all the time. And to know that it's not just about perfection, it's about the process. And if he can make my mistakes, if he can make my shortcomings work out in my favor, that's beneficial for me, and that's beneficial for my family, and that's beneficial for all those who may follow me, right? And number 3, love and purpose lead to redemption. All right, so here's your homework. What area of your life have you experienced failure? What area are you experiencing failure now, right? Are you still laying down, or have you gotten back up? If you have gotten back up, now you can help somebody else. If you hadn't gotten back up, you need to sit down and assess why you haven't gotten back up yet. Do you need somebody to help you up? Because remember, sometimes it takes time to get back up, and then sometimes you're not supposed to get up on your own. You need somebody to pull you up out of it. Right? Are you still laying down, or have you gotten back up? Do you need help getting back up? Listen, failure is not fatal, and failure is not final, right? We have the ability to bounce back, to be resilient in our failures, because we learn that failure is an opportunity to become better. Listen, all I want you to do is share this with somebody else. Send a link out on Facebook, post it to your profile, send the YouTube link out, share it with somebody else, because ultimately everybody deals with failure in some capacity. And even if they're not in a season right now where they're dealing with failure, they're going to deal with failure at some point. And you're going to deal with failure at some point. And if you don't learn to deal with failure the right way, then you're going to find yourself not growing, not getting better, and not helping the people around you that you're called and your purpose to help. Listen, this is Dr. Williams. I appreciate y'all getting on, coming into the dungeon. Practical Purpose Podcast. Y'all be good.